Okay, so here we are on another development phase, and seeing people feathering their own nest in their satellite states. And in the case of the Imperials and the Fascists, other countries have pulled out to prevent them from getting an advantage at this point. The capitalists, however, have risen Cuba, and that'll be its maximum is 2. It can't go more than double its base value. So this is all the capitalists can get out of Cuba. We're going to move on to draw the next card and see what we've got. And it's Southeast Asia next to China, India, and Indonesia. Nobody's near that. It's a 1-point area. It's a bonus for the imperialists. We'll see how it ends up. They may or may not get it. So the imperialists actually do end up with it because they played their economic first, and nobody had a cultural to go in, so they got to do that second, both with just 1 card. And now, in the conflict phase, we went around, and nobody could attack, and nobody could attack this, because everyone's at peace with the imperialists. So they're going to get Southeast Asia rather cheaply, actually. We're going into the diplomacy phase, and I can tell you one thing. This one's being downgraded. The Islamists are not happy about the economic. They had economic cards to go into Southeast Asia, and they just do not want to be peaceful. They're thinking they don't want to particularly be peaceful with anyone anymore. They're falling behind. So they will probably drop everything down. They may actually go to war with someone as well. All right. Well, we'll see where that all lands. So the net effect was everybody decided they're not thrilled with the imperialists and have pulled themselves down to just neutral towards them. The only peace right now is between the two people who are kind of losing, as far as I can see, the Islamicists and the communists. And indeed, the Islamicists went to war with the fascists. I'm not sure why, but they still have their sights set on Southeast Asia. So that leaves the fascists at war with both the communists and the Islamicists. Now, order of play is going to change. The fascists are at 5, but the imperialists have gotten their way up to 6 with that additional territory. So they bump up. The United States is at 5, so it stays, and everything else stays the same. On to the next turn. Okay, other than some quick bookkeeping here, as Alaska goes up a level, Mongolia goes up a level. Like I said, everybody's been kind of doing a little bit of housekeeping here. So what did we see? We saw a lot of fighting over the new territory of Peru. Well, a little bit of fighting over it. But that's going to go over to the imperialists. But Southeast Asia, boy, was there a lot there. The Islamics knocked the fascists out. I believe the communists beat the capitalists there. The fascists had taken the military, I think. I'm not sure what happened, but there was the imperialists were knocked out first, and then whoever knocked them out got knocked out. Basically a matter of cards being played against people they could play it against. The Islamics definitely took the fascists out militarily. So that's the shift we see. Alliance-wise, everybody's dropped to neutral. Nobody wants to be allied with the imperialists anymore. The United States wants to get into a war, but they're not allowed to. Oh, here was the other exciting thing. The fascists had a military expansion in hand, so they went in and took a chunk of Russia itself. They're looking at, well, look, if I can get Russia, it's a long shot, but it's worth, that would put me up to the 9 level, which is quite powerful. Of course, right now, The imperialists are still at 7. So let's see where points go. Imperialists are in the lead at 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. It stays even. And we go on to the next turn. We're beginning to see more and more of the resource cards being played to get advances. So for example, the imperialists have a couple of these defensive ones. The United States has gone ahead and picked up propaganda, which will allow their culture to expand more quickly. The fascists have also gone with propaganda, same reasoning. One of their risks here for the fascists is they've got this military influence in Russia. If they can't convert Russia, Russia can play military cards at the end of the assessment phase and convert fascist influence cards back to communist ones. Mother Russia is very difficult to overrun, and Germany may have bitten off more than it can chew fighting against the communists here. Okay, well, we're up to the foreign influence phase, and we do the one random thing, and we get a country that the imperialists don't have an advantage to. This is adjacent to France and North Africa, neither of which are in the game, so everybody's going to have to pay a distance penalty unless they have an offensive advantage such as propaganda or innovation, which will allow them to go in more cheaply. Alright, well, let's see what happens. So we made our way to the assessment phase, and the main fighting was over Spain and perhaps Southeast Asia, although there was some. We see the Islamists who are actually allied with Russia, but they played a cultural attack on Russia. The only thing that's going to happen here is the Russians are actually going to replace that using their totalitarianism advantage, which allows them to do that. They could have replaced the fascist military advantage as well, except that they booted the fascists out of Spain to prevent them from getting it. Seemed like a more valuable use. They had 2 cards, they could do that. So that's about it. Turn order's not changing. Things are kind of in the state of stasis with the imperialists sitting in the lead at a good 7 victory points and nobody really wanting to take them on directly for whatever reason. You have the Germans and Russians still at war, and the U.S. can't take a military stance against anyone, and I don't believe that Islam terribly wishes to go into a military fight, especially since the imperialists have been building up defensive cards to help protect their lead. Alright, we go on to the next turn. So up to the development and through the development phase, we're seeing countries who see that they've been stymied in any other advance attempts building up their own homes. So the United States is trying to grow up to level 4 on its own. Iran trying to grow up to level 5. Russia, well, the fascists pulled a military influence out. They're more or less giving up on the war, or at least any chance of destroying Russia. So they were trying to reduce Russia's ability to grow, or the communists' ability to grow. The communists had a military card, they played into it. They don't want to lose economic influence, or they don't want to lose global power. We also see some people growing cards in the event with the attempt to try to either defend themselves better or position themselves better for attack, because we seem to have reached a stasis type position. I think things have to break on the diplomacy table or somewhere. No matter what, though, as always, we have another territory coming in. In this case, it's Brazil, which is next to Argentina, Colombia, and Peru. Well, Peru is already in play and under imperialist control, which means the imperialists have an advantage moving into Brazil as well. Yet another advantage for them. I think we're going to start seeing more and more desire to take them down. So indeed, there's a triumvirate of powers. The communists and the fascists made peace, and they and the Islamists have all declared war on the imperialists. The communists opened things up by pushing some economic influence into Mongolia, which they could do because they're adjacent to it. But Brazil falls over into the imperialist camp. Southeast Asia stays neutral. Spain stays neutral. Neither one of those was capable of being taken. They would have taken multiple cards to go after. Yes. Okay. We do see some advances. Peru goes up to level 2. I believe Brazil drops down to level 1. I'm not positive of that. Oh, it doesn't fall. That's right. It needs to have level 2 control everywhere for someone to own it. So it doesn't go into the imperialist camp. Sweet. Okay. Mongolia stays at level 2. This is 4. The US goes up to level 4. Germany's fine. Russia's fine. Yeah, I forgot. You got to go up to level 2 in Spain and Brazil. Strange. And Iran goes all the way up to level 5. So we may see a little bit of unbalancing here of the points. We'll see what happens. Let me... 6, 7, 8 for the imperialists. 6 for the fascists. 6 for the capitalists. 5 for the Islamicists. And still 3 for the communists. And we go on to the next turn. And you think a certain balance has been broken where everybody's realizing, you know, the imperialists are ahead by at least a card or two cards a turn over the next greatest power. It's time we have to take them down somewhat. And I like that balance of power aspect of the game, but I could see where this thing could go on quite long. Obviously, there is a certain time limit because you could just buy cards and eventually have enough weapons of mass destruction that you win the game off those. My world! Okay, onward. So most of the ideologies are gearing up for this war. The imperialists built themselves another patriotism, another tactic, because that makes it even more expensive to attack them militarily or culturally, but they have a weakness economically. Of course, it's difficult for some of these countries to do a great job economically. So, for example, the communists have a problem because of the Iron Curtain effect, doing an economic attack at all. Likewise, let's see who else. Well, the cultural is a problem for the fascists, and they have a problem with innovations or technological supremacy. The U.S., on the other hand, built cards to get themselves technological supremacy. So now they can go anywhere. They could also buy themselves a weapon of mass destruction, but that's a really expensive improvement compared to, say, the 3 cards that it would take to up 1 level, just for victory points. For stopping someone from winning, that might be a good move. But right now, at 8 points, the imperialists aren't that close, and there's a lot of power aligned against them. So, basically, this is preventing capitalism from going to war by buying that last card, because nobody wants to face them able to make that move. But they're able to also extend into regions that are neutral. Speaking of neutral, let's see what we get. We get Eastern Europe, another 2-point region, harder to get, adjacent to Poland, Russia, Scandinavia, and Southern Europe. Big bonus for Russia there. They may actually move towards Eastern Europe and try to develop that instead of perhaps continuing their attacks in Mongolia. We'll see. So, up to the diplomacy phase, things have shifted a bit. The Great War didn't really happen. What we saw was Russia, well, the communists and capitalists, fighting over Eastern Europe instead, with communism getting the upper edge. We also saw the fascists, who were one of the better poised forces, grabbing Spain. Yeah, we see, some influence economic and military by other sides, but they were able to throw a lot of cards into there. Meanwhile, the imperialists were unable to complete Brazil because they didn't have a cultural expansion. These cards made them too invulnerable. They really could not be attacked. In order to make a physical attack would require 3 cards, even if you had no distance penalty. Nobody's got enough tactics. Nobody's got any. The only thing anybody has is the communists have industry. Everybody else is lacking these cards. They don't have the power to take imperialism directly on. But fascism has just jumped into an equally good position. And unfortunately, this is one of the factors. Maybe some little trays to hold the countries or whatever would be useful. It's also, this game takes up a lot of space for what it is. I mean, my table holds a good sized war game, but this thing is already taking it up now. Granted, I can pull back and get a little bit more space here, but this game takes more space than I expected. And look at that pile. I mean, if anywhere near that comes out, I'm in trouble, right? I'll have to bring more tables out. Oh yeah, I wanted to show. I'll be packing this away because it's not going to come for a while, but yay. Boy, that makes me happy. Okay, so the one thing we saw in the diplomacy chart, though, was the Islamicists said, why am I picking on the imperialists? The fascists are just as harsh, and went to war with them, too. The communists, on the other hand, said, I don't want to cause too many problems. I'm going to stay where I am. And that's about it. Now, the communists actually really want military so that they can grab this, but once they get Eastern Europe, then they can use their totalitarianism to remove those military controls, which will help them greatly. I think that's the end of the turn, right? Turn order. That may change, right? Now, fascists are at the same level as the imperialists. Then we go 6-5-3. So we're good there. This one's going up.